This is Van Electric Ghost, and we're live on there with Brett Ashby for the first time. And you're a contemporary performance artist with 20 years of international practice creating portrait paintings while rolling and exploring the human connection. So I want to thank you for being on the Van Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing?
I'm well, thanks, Phantom. Thanks for having me. It's a real honor to be here
Well, thank you. Before we
talking
get
art with you.
yeah, it's always great. One thing before we get to the heart of your story, I always ask everybody a couple questions. What motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Well, I've been motivated by traveling a lot, taking photography when I was young. And obviously, I just feel inspired by witnessing and being present with what's out in front of me.
That's cool. So how long have you been working with photography?
Well, I was did multimedia back in university, or Queen's College in London, and then this is around 2006. And then I made my way to DC in about 2009, where I was taking a lot of photography for Barack Obama's portrait.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Absolutely. It was a major turning point in my art career for sure.
Well, I think it's important for artists to be able to get their work out. What made you feel like you had the permission structure to actually publish your work to a wider audience?
Well, I was working in television in Australia, and I was filming an old French painter. She did landscapes, and we had a cup of tea at her studio. And I said, "Look, I'm looking to head across to the States and do a portrait of Barack Obama. Do you think I should do that?" And she said, she was about 93 years of age, and she said, "You know what? I reckon you should head over there and do that, Brett." So that was the permission I got.
Well, that's cool. Well, at least you had somebody like a mentor type of person or somebody that made you feel confident enough to do it. The one thing I always, when I talk to artists or creators, I always want to get that moment that allowed them to actually get their work outside of themselves.
Oh,
Uh,
wonderful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, growing up doing art class, I always found a real expression to make my mark. I had no fear in terms of drawing or drafting as a young person. So my family were from building and drawing houses and architecture. So I think it only would become very normal for me to create.
that's really interesting today because there's so many folks that some people I talk to people outside of this podcast, and they're like, "Well, how do you get to be an artist?" They're like, because I think some people look at artists and they're like, "Well, I can't be Shakespeare. I can't be Herman Melville. I can't be like Nat King Cole. Like they just can't see themselves being a creator because they put creators at this level that they can't see themselves doing it. And then I always feel all human beings are very creative. And when we put roadblocks like that to make ourselves like say, oh, we can't do it, when every day you do something creative to get through the day, we're telling stories, doing all
Absolutely.
kinds.
Yeah, yeah, always passing on that love of the art and the creativity, and I feel like it is born within us, and I guess it's only the traditional constructs and the man-made, which is limiting us and from truly being our true expression.
Yeah, because it's like the canon. Like people any person that gets into like your photography, you get 10,000 hours in and you really know your camera, you know what to do. You start getting the work like a
Yeah, the
musician.
production. Yeah.
Yeah, we put our 10,000 hours on a bass or a keyboard or whatever. You see all my keyboards behind me. Like you put the time in, then it becomes like muscle memory.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then it's just there.
I feel like, yeah, with your question is, many people they maybe overlearn the ways to do things, or they're being told to create, and they keep working on that craft, but then they lose the fact that they can be original. And it's important to make your mark. And also, I always tried to create things that maybe I'd never seen before because it really inspired me to make original content.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Like when you see really great creators, they might have learned from the canon. They learned from all their influences. They did the work, right? But the core of any great artist is they know when to kind of break the rules. Like if you talk to kids at Berkeley, they learn the fundamentals. But when they
Yeah, for
come out,
sure.
they tend to break the rules, right? You tend to try to you take what you learn and then you invert it. You convert it or you you
Yeah,
you
yeah,
re
yeah, yeah.
you reinvent it.
It's very important to, otherwise you feel like it's graphic design.
Yeah, you don't wanna just, like, do corporate logos all day, which is, like, maybe that's your day job. 'Cause my daughter, she's actually a graphic artist, and she does logo work. She does,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
she does infographics, she does stuff, but then she does stuff for galleries. She does
Yeah,
stuff for
yeah.
her own, like, heart projects. She does she's a working artist, so she does the work, but then she has her own private stuff that she will go to the galleries or stuff that she's gonna present that's more not conventional. So, you always keep a lot of artists, they're like, we have a day job or we get to a lot of artists are like, working, like, side like, they don't know, they have a side gig that's their job and the art is their love.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I understand for sure.
And funds like what they really want. You have to buy all their supplies, to buy everything that they're gonna do, and buy their cameras, buy the keyboards, buy the guitars, or whatever you're gonna buy, your paints. Um, so, I think art to me is, why I get up in the morning, and you have a kind of statement say art saves lives. I really think that art allows you to, kind of be it's very cathartic. It's like art therapy. You go to a therapist and they tell you to do some art therapy. But musicians and artists, we do art therapy as like that's our kind of modus operandi. That's kind of what we
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah. I think it's always been something that's just, I'd never really called it a job or a you know, I had no rules to it. I just find yourself in a situation, a commission might be coming in, there might be some production, like you're saying, a bit of production work coming in. I just kept expanding up and up and up until you're receiving abundance and funds for your originality and your own ideas. And there are people out there that do want what you can create. So I've always just had full trust in, if I'm going to hug into that and I'm going to love that, then there will be a collector that's seeking that.
Yeah, because it's kind of like the law of attraction. I'm a big believer. Like you put something out in the ether, somebody's going to find it. Your tribe will find you.
Yeah,
If,
yeah, yeah. Into
instead of trying,
consciousness, into ether. Yeah,
yeah, until you're like, if you like some folks are like, oh, well, I've got to get into that like canon, I got to get into the box. And they'll
no, no.
kind of contort themselves to fit into it, thinking that's the only way. Versus like, if you throw it out into the ether, like maybe somebody in Taiwan likes what you're doing, maybe somebody in
For
Argentina likes
sure.
what you're doing. You don't know. You don't know if you
Yeah,
don't put it
yeah,
out.
yeah. I think a really big thing is when you're starting out of art school, you will find a box that you sit in, and some people will also feel like that's what my audience want to see from me, and then you keep pushing that product, but it might take you. Um, 200 paintings. It might take you 5 years, it might take you 15 years and 2,000 paintings before you realize, hang on a minute, this is what I thought they wanted, but you're not feeling it for yourself. So no one actually wanted that. And that's been something many painters have said to me along the way is, oh dear, I only woke up to the fact that I was sharing something that I thought they wanted, but that's not going to work for your art.
Yeah, because like what people think people want is not actually what they want.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because yeah, because like if you just keep on giving them what's in the like as a musician, like if I just give them what's in the top 20, of course
Sure.
A&R people are gonna say that's what everybody wants. But it's when you go and you take a risk. Now
Yep.
sometimes like the risk doesn't give you immediate reward, and we kind of live in instant gratification world where like true art sometimes is not as ahead of its time. Sometimes
It's
you're
always been the case for me. So I'll explain, like with the portrait of Barack Obama there. So I started in photographic collage, and I traveled 28 states, took photography all the way around, and then collaged it into the face of Obama. And it was like a portrait of all those things on his shoulders. And now you'll start seeing contemporary artists today, 20 years later, doing photographic collage that represents very similar to what me and the mixed media artists were doing in 2000s.
Yeah, a lot of times
It's taken that long.
yeah, because if you do something that's on kind of the bleeding edge, everybody's like wondering like, what is that, right?
That's
And
what
so
it was like. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of the critics will say, well, that's not what it is. Like that's
They
not
used
that.
to call it digital imaging, digital art, and it was hard to collect because people were scared about reproductions and digital printing.
Yeah, yeah. The people, yeah, we're in this whole new world where that's the gaining, acceptance.
There's more traction now, 15 years later. Yeah, for sure.
And that's where a lot of times artists to get ahead of the curve. I always talk about William Blake, because I'm a big into the Victorians, but he's one of the greatest Victorian poets, and he was not known in his time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I understand.
yeah, I mean, because that's what can happen. I mean, that can happen. You think about like a guy like Lou Reed and the Velvets. All the great musicians listened to them, but they didn't sell any records. Tons of
Absolutely.
producers listened to them, and only in like by the 70s, David Bowie, because he listened to them, actually
Yeah.
worked on Walk on the Wild Side. He worked on that record. And then suddenly what Lou was doing in 66, because Bowie kind of gave a stamp, suddenly it worked. But Bowie was a fan. And he said, well, this guy needs to get pushed. And so he was lucky he had a guy like
Yeah.
Bowie push him. But like
Yeah, yeah,
that's all.
yeah. And it's also you're entering into like manifestation and steadfast focus into something. So maybe Bowie had such a direct focus and addiction to that musician that he loved that it manifested through the next guy.
Yeah. I mean, it ends up like, cause like you never know. It's like your fan can push you.
Yeah,
some a super fan can suddenly break through and like a collector finds like tells their whole audience, then boom, then suddenly you're known. And you don't know who that's gonna be. Right.
I think there's another thing you're talking about there, the synchronicity. So you do, as a painter or a performer, you will meet the person is usually in front of you, who's then informing you, and that synchronicity will then lead to the next outcome, project, or reason why you're doing it.
Yeah,
I
because you go
always try to detail the artwork is actually art process. If you can achieve that artwork on the wall or that mural on the wall or that stage show where I skateboarding live for an hour in front of 500 people and whilst I'm painting a portrait of a human that's on stage, it's not the final outcome. It's how did you achieve that? It's costing you, say, $25,000 an hour to paint this thing. There's a lot of constructs there. There's a whole team of production. There's how did you achieve that painting on canvas? That's the art.
yeah, you have a whole kind of like a happening. Like when you do the
Yeah, for
skate paint,
sure.
I kind of look at like a happenings back in the late 60s and 70s. You had these multimedia things where you had musicians, actors, painters, models. They would all get together and they kind of
The
have this
coming
hot,
together. Yeah.
yeah,
Coming
and
together, and without one or the other, it's not a moment in time. I love that fact. I was painting a panel van while skateboarding. So it was a mobile sculptural piece. I painted the side of a panel van with oils whilst painting on a skateboard. And the youth, and I had lots of youth coming to witness this, and they informed me that you're painting the movement of the skateboard onto the car. And I wasn't understanding the process myself until it was from the youth, from the voices
like
who
I
let
told
me
you,
know what we're
it's like
doing.
feedback, but it's like a
Yeah,
musician feedback with the audience. Like
yeah,
when
yeah.
you're a musician and you have an audience, it that feedback from the audience actually is an input to how you play.
It was
So
an absolute exchange of energy.
yeah, that's the
It's a
thing when you do
beautiful thing.
these live things, you get that interactive. Like, because a lot of times artists, like when I'm writing a song, there's nobody there. Like it's just
Absolutely,
me.
isolation.
But then when you put yourself into that connection with your audience, then that's a two-way street.
Then it's coming through.
Yeah,
It's a
that's a cool
beautiful
thing.
thing.
Well, skate and paint, that's a cool idea. I kind of put it where I envision it as like a happening. Like,
Yep,
like
yep.
you had, yeah, like, Andy Warhol used to have these happenings with the Velvets.
Yeah,
And
yeah, for sure.
he had these big, like, events where they had, like, like, the models and the painters and the visual artists all at once. And same thing with,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Zappa and the Mothers. They did the same thing in San Francisco. They were doing that in New York with Lou Reed and Andy, but, like, Zappa was doing that with all these San Francisco artists. And it
Beautiful.
seems like, I don't know if more people in the underground, you don't get the, like, popular media talking about this stuff anymore. Like, you find it, like, in the underground, you might find out this stuff is happening, but it's not reaching, like, the popular media. But I
No,
find
no,
that a lot of this
very
stuff is still
challenging.
happening.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's the everyone that's the late last 5 years, everybody attending these events absolutely love the ritual and the meditative states of the shows. I have a live musician. I have the live subject sitting is either a singer or an actress or a notable celebrity, and it definitely is the light show, the projection art, the sound of the skate pendulum. It very much is a gathering place, and there's this thing. It's like with the panel van and with the show, it's like a black hole. It's that feeling like this occurred, and then you move it away, and it's never happened ever, and it can never happen again. And that's
Well, that's
such
the
a
point.
lovely thing,
Yeah, that's
ephemeral art sort of
yeah,
feeling.
ephemeral, kinda in the moment. That's what I a lot of if you get into, like, experimental music or, I like call modal jazz or fusion jazz, a lot of that music, along with experimental electronic music that I'm into, is really point in time. And you see guys in
Yeah,
Berlin, you see guys like in, out in South America, wherever you go, even India, anywhere you find them, but there are these like scenes where
yeah,
you
yeah,
have
yeah.
these experimental musicians, and it's really like it's paint on canvas sound painting,
And
right?
like
You
you're
do it
feeling it and you're embodying this, and then you got to be so present that sometimes you're not present enough because you're thinking, oh, like this is going to be over soon, like it's like because this can never happen or ever happen or come together again, and
yeah,
it's a lovely thing to witness.
yeah, kinda like the fact that you have this moment that can get captured. You can film it, you can record it,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's very hard to replicate exactly, right?
Oh, there's
It's
no way ever. Like with the brush strokes, it's kind of like so. Um, it, it's only occurring because of the audience. It's only occurred because of the site, the place. They've shut down. I did that one at Sculpture by the Sea in Bondi, and I was performing across 15 days on a mountain overlooking the ocean at Bondi Beach in Sydney, and you're never going to be able to put your sculpture there unless it's part of the event. You know what I mean? It's such a
yeah,
lovely thing.
yeah, they these in the moment, point in time, it becomes beautiful because you know that that moment is not gonna last forever, and that's the appeal to me compared to things that are highly composed. Like
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a lot of work that's highly composed, planned out, that people use a lot of computers today to, like, make very exact, very and I find it somewhat antiseptic. I find
yeah,
people creating things that are, like, it's too perfect because I
yeah,
think
yeah,
art
yeah.
is full of what I call the happy accident.
The textures, the accidents.
Yeah,
Absolutely, Phantom. It's so important, and people pay for that. They know that there's nothing straight or linear in nature. Now, if your canvas has all that control, it's lost the feeling.
yeah, feeling is real important because the heart and the soul and the feeling and those things are not, mathematical algorithms that are super planned out. right? There's a lot of stuff that, there's a lot of math in music, but there's a lot of random nature to it. There's random, and there's like
Yeah,
microtonal, there's micro like rhythmic issues where human beings are never going to be on the clock. They're not going to be 150 BPM, 120 BPM exact. A
yeah,
drummer is
for
going to be
sure.
in that range, but they're not exact. They're a little
Yeah.
bit off, but
But he
that's
adds
what.
his feel. He adds his
Yeah,
feel. And honestly, myself, I want that. I want to pay for that.
you
I
want the
don't
feel.
want the drum machine. Yeah, yeah,
You want a real
absolutely.
drummer, a real percussionist. Like if you
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
have that real sound when somebody's actually playing a bass or they're playing a piano live or they're playing a synth live, like a Moog, mini Moog. I'm a big like synth head, but if somebody's playing a Hammond B3 in a mini Moog and then have a piano and electric piano, like you see the old like keyboardists from like the big bands like Yes and
Yeah,
Pink
for
Floyd
sure.
and in Genesis, and there's something about Tony Banks and those guys playing live,
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
having stuff recorded, that there was like this like mystery of that. Yeah, they're gonna go through this progressive odyssey, and you're gonna get pulled in with the light show and the
Yeah,
lasers, and
yeah, yeah.
like you get pulled in.
That's what the live art and live music scene should be again. We need to keep it going, bring it back.
Yeah, well, I like what you're doing because you're mixing like you're mixing like different multimedia. 'Cause you're actually
Yeah, yeah,
performance
yeah.
art.
I
You have a
feel like
performance.
there was
Yeah,
one moment, Phantom, where I felt like maybe I'm just like a Fuji digital printer. Maybe I'm the printer and I'm printing this art on canvas. But like I love that printing press process back in the day when they were doing the lino prints and they were doing the Warhol.
mechanical. Yeah,
Um,
mechanical. Yeah.
but it's almost we're doing again, but I'm using like that popular icon of the skateboard, and it's something that, what does that mean to people worldwide? What does it mean with the mindset, the mental state, and what does it mean to roll? And then how we all get through our waking lives, it's somewhat come together.
Hey, why did you like the skateboard? What was that? What was the reason that you wanted to use that?
So I grew up skateboarding, and there was a moment where I was semi-pro, I guess, doing aerials, and I got a really large trick, and I come down, and I had a major crash on a vert ramp. So I injured my front teeth and my atlas in my neck, and I guess it changed my life. And went off doing my art, traveling the world, and it was about 11 years before I skateboarded again. And I received a commission for the John Olsen. He's a painter, and he was opening a apartment tower in Melbourne, and he commissioned me to do a painting. And I said, well, I'm going to paint it at the Paran vert ramp here next to your building. And so I called my childhood friend and I said to him, what are you doing? And he's like, what are you doing, Brent? I said, I'm going to drop in this vert ramp and I'm going to paint a fence. And I removed a panel of fencing from the local area and I painted art all over it. And that was the commission. And we hung it in John's building, and it was exhibited. And it was it was me combating fear, and it was a sense of healing where I hadn't skated ever since. And that on that day, I had my childhood friend. I went up the 20-foot vert ramp and dropped in first go and painted the whole fence, and that was the artwork. So it really was just a moment in time like that where, and then after that for 5 years plus now, 7, 8 years, just painting while skating full time.
Well, so you faced your fear head on. And you just did
Just
it.
did it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's how you have to do it sometimes. And sometimes, like if you really obsess about it, you think about it, you say, "Well, I'm going to plan it." Sometimes you just got to like
Yeah, it
drop it.
was not it was completely unplanned. And like now I'm doing the more controlled portraiture, but at the start it was just, can you make lines while skating on a vert ramp? And I thought in my head, like I could see this vision in my mind, like, yeah, this can be done. So then I put it to work. And again, I guess it was that crossroads where you meet another mentor, someone, a figure who actually goes ahead with a commission. He hears your concept he assists in giving you the go ahead, and then the rest is history, right? You just actually hear a voice that says, you know what, that idea is really rock and roll, let's go. And then
Yeah.
next thing you know, you've done the damn thing, and you've won the whole show and the event and picked up a few prizes, and there you go, mate. You're going to keep going. So I just kept it going. Absolutely lovely
It's
moment.
potential. Well, I mean, it reminds me of like a happening in the performance art, and that there was a there were trends in the past where people were pushing the envelope, but like it's very personal, like how you choose to do your performance.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you took something that you had a fear, like you hadn't done it like 10 years, like a decade or something. So
Yeah, I reckon.
that's super powerful because I think that's what I've always talked about is the vulnerability that artists can express in their work. And when you deal
Yeah.
with something like that, that is so like that's your secret sauce. That's you. Nobody else has that. Like,
I think it's very unique, and I think it's what a really great way to pull that inner child out and reconnect to your youth and overcome these things. But whilst for people that are painters, they ask me like, you're just coming up with these ideas through brainstorming, and I'm said, well, no, I was just in this moment, like most likely willing to risk it all and having no fear, learning how to dissolve the thoughts and allow the painting to paint itself, and trust that the site, this is a famous half pipe. The best skaters in the world have been there. And I thought, well, I'm going to return to this thing and ask the universe to give me protection and allow me to paint this thing on this site and on this landscape for a great cause.
well, I think it's super. To me, it's like I like stories like that because like you also have a story in terms of like cancer survival and and this seems like similar to that. Cause I'm just to disclose,
Yeah.
age 27, I had a stage 3 sarcoma, and I'm 58 now, so I kind of gone through it. So I'm very interested in people's stories where they get to the other side of it.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
seems like
yeah.
you got to the other side emotionally from this thing with the skateboarding, but you have the story about cancer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think it's if you track your sort of cycles, I mean, we did the Barack Obama project. We then, 5, 6 years on, we done the John Olson skateboarding painting on a fence, and then 2016, after traveling the world non-stop for 10, 12 plus years, you're struck down with, you know, widespread lymphoma and testicular cancer as a 30-year-old male.
Mhm.
It's something that education no one knows about. So for me, it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've always told people when I had the stage 3 sarcoma on my back that at age 27, that actually, it made me to who I am today because
Yeah,
it
yeah,
opened up me to, not being scared of things. I ended up after that, like, by age 30, I lived in Japan for, like, 2 years. I met my wife from Barbados, we had a kid. We chose I chose to live,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I
yeah,
chose to push myself and get involved in different things and, do the podcast, do my music. Um, and just, in my day job, I'm in a startup. I'm doing IT, really high level IT work in with AI and all kinds of other things. But I just decided like I don't have to be scared of life. I should deal with it head on. And it made me see things in a different way than like the pre-cancer version of myself. And I would think maybe you
yeah,
seemed like
yeah.
the same thing happened to you.
Absolutely. Like I feel like everything I'd done to that moment, all I wanted was one more week to live. And yeah, they sort of give me the report like you'll die in a week if you don't really get onto this. And during the process, I also had to decide if I wanted to have a child, so I can see my son. So I mean, so much was happening, and everyone did think I was going to pass on. So I think it was actually just the start of my life there and then, and I finally wasn't looking out anymore, and I realized for the first time it's all right to stay within your home. And I'd been traveling the world for 15 years nonstop. I did my first self-portrait of myself at university in London, and that's when I did the collage in my own face, was to voice and express, the chaos and complexity of a small Australian boy going and living in London. And I feel like it took me 2,000 odd paintings to realize and get struck down with cancer to realize that you don't need to all look outside yourself anymore, Phantom. And I reckon maybe you felt like this as well.
Yeah, it's like, Victoria. I always go back to the Victorian ideas, but the looking glass self that the Victorians talked about, the mirror,
Yeah,
is like a lot of times when when you really start to realize what you can do with art, is usually it's stuff from your soul, your heart, your
you got
subconscious.
all your need already.
Yeah, that's all there. That all this outward stuff doesn't have the vitality or the actual authenticity of
Authenticity,
actually
yeah.
of getting into your deep inside. And some people feel like, "Well, who's gonna wanna know about me? Who's gonna wanna know what's inside?"
Yeah.
But guess what? What's inside is very familiar to everybody else too. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
when
yeah.
you take what's inside, everybody's human and they have similar experiences. So when you don't think that what's internal to you is if you don't think it's
It's
worth anything,
valuable. Yeah. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
worth a lot, because once you put it out, other people would identify with it. They actually feel the frequency. They hear the frequency.
And
They
they're
they
most
they feel
likely
the vibe.
grateful that you're having a go at putting this out because they're not willing or they're not able to put it out. So I guess as a creative, you got to, if you can express it in your means and within your budget, or what you're blessed with, then that's the miracle of it, that you can express that for the oneness and other people.
Yeah, because like to me, the fans, like when they take your work, like when the audience takes the work, then they kind of own it. And the artist doesn't really own the work once they create it, like the world owns it. And like you just let it be and you move on to the next thing. But like it's always interesting when the audience comes in and talks to artists about how they see their work. I think it's super cool to hear what the audience or fan thinks about the work, because I know where I was feeling, or you probably what you were feeling when you
Yeah,
did
yeah,
it. But
yeah,
to
of course.
actually hear what they feel, to me, is like it's a whole nother level to get that, from the audience.
That's been the amazing thing to do as a painter, is to stand and witness your own exhibit. And even if you're in the corner or on the desk or at the front door, but just to be observer of the commentary coming and going through your exhibit. If they don't know who you are, it's a lovely thing to make notes on what they're saying. And many shows I've done this, and it's really informed what I was doing, or at least informing me what the general punter thinks you're doing. And then you can even amplify that and create works more like what they thought you were doing. But it's really, they have no idea what I was doing. That's the best part, you
Yeah.
know?
It's just enlightening to kinda get that picture and that feedback. And so it's interesting because you do live performance that
Yeah,
you get to feel like when you're sitting there doing a painting or crafting something in the room,
yeah,
which most artists, we are able to spend a lot of time with ourselves.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
a lot of our work gets done in some room, and you're by
Yeah,
yourself.
I said it to someone at an opening the other night. They said, "Oh, like it. That sounds like it's a bit lonely." And I said, "Well, I'm not sure what everybody's considering or thinking an artist does, but I said, yeah, you're sitting in a studio for half my life thus far, half my life alone." I said,
Yeah.
"There's no one else there." I said, "When you see the spectacle or the performance, that's only later in my career that I was doing that." So absolutely, I did a series of work, like it was paintings with the dead as such. It was in Pentridge prison in Australia, in Melbourne, and I used to hang the canvas directly on the bluestone wall. And I've never done that. Gaffer tape it to the bluestone, and it was almost like the walls were painting through. But yeah, there was no one there. But every time I would come, I was meeting with a security officer. We used to cross paths, and I was like, hey. And then when I'd leave at like 1 a.m., I was like, oh, here he is again. Arn's here. Hi. And then you exit, but the only human you've bumped into is the security officer, and you've been there for 8 hours painting with the bluestone. But it almost felt like I was there for 3 days sometimes.
Yeah, that's just really the solitude of like your creativity. Because everybody sees like when the artist gets on stage or they get in front of the crowd if they're an actor, but it's like a lot of times if you're doing this work, dancers they get immediate reaction because they're in front of people. That's their whole thing. But they still spend a lot of time perfecting all that before they get in front of the audience.
Absolutely.
Most of their life is the practice. The stage
Absolutely.
work is not as much as the work that they actually put in to get to the stage. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
story.
It's like we were talking about earlier is always I did a lot of public art, a lot of youth engagement, funded by the police and public housing and all these aspects. And as such, I always would say to the youth is that it's that we were saying it before. It's how did it get to the final artwork? That's the art of it. It's art of living, and all of the moving parts, all of the ups and downs and people and culture and diversity, everyone plays their cog for that artwork to be realized. Yeah, and it's come out of everyone.
Yeah. Well, that's the cool thing if you think about it. Because I was talking to like writers. Writers are like sponges, and
Yeah,
they could be sitting in a coffee shop. They're like on a train, anywhere they are. They're just picking up everything that's happening. They pick up
yeah,
all this stuff, and then they have their own world in their head, right? So it's like their subconscious, their dreams, their own design, whatever their vision is, but they're very good at observing the outside world. And I think like not all
I
creative
was doing that too. I was doing that for years. And I love that. I think everything is around you, or everything is inside you, but then it's all being mirrored around you. And I used to always be observer of that and try and collate and make something, representational of my experience. And these later shows where I was painting portraits on the business card, I'd have my art manager and how to contact her, but on the front it was the experience. It
yeah.
was written on there. That
That's
that that's that was the feedback from the fans. They said, "Oh, like the experience with Ashby." I've even met people later in life, and they're like, "Is this still the experience, Brett? Like, Phantom, this you're just having another experience, or is this life, or is this
yeah,
real?"
yeah.
So it's all art, and that's the best part.
Well, yeah, I mean, the stage is the world is the stage, and the thing is like everybody in the world that you interact with is a contributor, not just like your references. Like you're like everybody has influences of all artists will say, "Oh, I was influenced by this artist, this painter, this photographer," but it's the whole world you're influenced by, right? The world that you interact with, the world that you're in. And like
Yeah,
the thing
yeah,
about artists, we synthesize all of that. Like it's the
yeah.
synthesis of all those things into these low like precious moments that we put down. And
In the
most of the
best
time
of
they can't be
your understanding and your ability in that moment. And you can walk along that path and go get your cup of coffee, but if you step in that lane and you walk there, you know nothing.
yeah.
And that's the best part. But
Yeah,
being open to the nothingness,
yeah,
because I
nothing.
might walk into Phantom on that lane, and then we get a coffee at the other store, and then that changes my whole artistic outcome of the whole day or forever.
Yeah, it's like the random things that happen and the unexpected. Why I was always very interested like Bowie made a really awesome statement about like as an artist, he liked to kind of tread water metaphorically, like go into something that he wasn't the best at. He would
Yeah,
go and try push himself into genres that he wasn't the best, right? That he would go into
absolutely.
areas that he didn't know anything about. So we go talk
A-
to Brian Eno, or we go talk to Stevie Ray Vaughan, or we go talk to Luther Vandross. And these are all people that weren't doing what he was doing. They were pretty maybe better than him. And he wasn't scared of going and challenge himself with an artist that was maybe technically better than him at something.
Yeah,
And then that's cool.
and it doesn't have to be another artist. I'd recommend going into uh, a whole other fields. You know, going into a Sri Lankan cooking class, and then going down and learning how to sail a yacht, and
Oh
then
yeah.
you know, go over there that something you've never done, because that's going to inform your next lyrics. That's going to inform everything you do, because you might be watching how they make patterns in their craft, because they come from a cultural background, and actually they know how to make fabric better than what you've
Anybody.
been looking at for 10 years.
Yeah, it's
I
like
just
anything
think
you
throw
experience. Yeah.
yourself, yeah, like jump straight into the ocean and dive into those other realms, because the people in there will assume you know all that they know as well from that area. What I've always noticed and I've always gone into different things like you're talking about, different facets of life, and if you're present and just calm and confident, but I always realize that people in those moments, they just think you know exactly what they know, and you're at their level. So then it reflects back, and then you find your way. But there's a lot of learnings to be had there.
Yeah, I think people get so if you go into the corporate world or the world of like the 9 to 5, and you're looking for a job, and the job is laying like you got to have these things 1 through 10. You got to have these exact things. If you don't have these things and these certificates, and then we won't even talk to you. Where before, like all this computerized world, and you actually could talk to somebody, you could say like,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
I don't have what this job says I should have. But if I tell you this story about myself and about what I can
yeah.
do, right? Maybe you'll wanna hire
You
me.
got the job.
Yeah,
Well, you got the
I've
job
got
already,
I've
most
got
likely.
yeah, I've been
The
able to get
honest
jobs.
person.
Yeah, I've been able to get jobs that technically I did not have anything they said they needed. But after I talked to
Absolutely.
somebody, I told them a story and they understood it and they actually hired me. But the way if
Yeah,
you
I
just
believe
have
that.
a computer say,
And a
"Oh,
resume. Yeah,
yeah, look at the bot, the AI bot reads it and said, "Well, you don't match, so I'm not even gonna present you to the human." Like, the
yeah,
how many
for
people
sure.
are getting cut off from being where they could be because we're
Yeah,
using
that's the limiting.
algorithms.
Yeah, that's the current situation we're in, and I think actually we got getting back to the canvases and the paintings. I think artists. So if you do a painting, you take a photo, you do the submission form, and you send it into a show. I feel like what you're saying is happening with shuffling through the art, and then many great painters aren't getting into the events, and that's limiting them there. And then also the online portals trying to sell artworks is limiting painters as well from not taking them to big public art fairs and the Art Basel and these type of big events. So you're watching it in terms of paintings as well, not just job recruitment, and every it keeps going up and down. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because
for
we're getting
sure.
all these gatekeepers. Like, we got into a world where people saying the gatekeepers are gone, and then they come back. They kinda they've snuck back in. Then at the
Absolutely.
same time, they're telling you that there's no gatekeepers, right? A lot of times people will say in this world there are no gatekeepers, but I find
I
gatekeepers
think it's probably even worse in the arts, Phantom. So music and painting, I think the gatekeepers are all up there at the moment. So you really need help pushing through that barrier.
Yeah. You found a way because you've been very authentically yourself, and then you've been able to
Yeah.
present
I
that.
think as well, I did what you were saying with the resume. I walked in with the physical things. When I traveled everywhere, I'd have my printouts, I'd have my printed photography, I'd have an actual bag with my physical things, and I'd hug you and I'd buy you a Starbucks and we'd go somewhere and then I'd be like, nice, I'm in Philly, I'm in this city, I'm down at Huntington Beach. And I was like, wow, these guys have been here. And then I'd write to these surfers and then I'd catch up with them. I'd catch up with the skateboarders, but I'd have my bag like back in the day, like they would used to do. And then I handshake the human, and that's being real. And that's how it's always worked for me. Nothing online has ever, I didn't sell my art online for until 2024.
Yeah, I think the human connection, I think a lot of, some of the young people have kind of grown up in this world post-COVID where they
Yeah.
think everything's like everything's online, everything's robotic, everything's AI, everything's all this tech. And they've
Yeah.
forgotten, like, you know, pick up the telephone. Don't
Yeah.
send somebody a text. Call somebody, use the phone to actually call somebody.
Yeah,
Talk
I
to that
think you'd
person.
have a much better outcome.
And then actually
Um,
set up an appointment to go meet him at a coffee shop or meet him at a
yeah,
bar and have a discussion, right? But, like, if you keep on texting and chatting and doing all this stuff online, it's like a blind alley.
yeah, and the best thing I ever experienced was I looked up current painters in current cities, and before I flew over to America, I was coming into LA. I emailed these Los Angeles artists, and I said, "Look, I'm from Melbourne. I'm coming over. I've never been to America. If you're available, I'd love to show you a painting, and I'll get you a coffee." And these stories, they changed my life, because these painters they picked me up in their in one awesome mood and drove me all around LA. Another one took me all around New York. I'm still great friends with her, and it was only because I asked, and they said, "Well, who else from Australia is ever going to ask us to have a coffee?" I thought, "Well, that's brilliant. Let's go."
Yeah, because the people, like, don't know what you can do until you actually do it. Like, you might, like,
Yeah,
think about wait, set up all night wondering if you should do it. Versus what
yeah,
happens if I actually do it? Like, so many folks have, like, not picked up the phone, not typed the email, not done the work because they started saying, "Well, I don't know how I'm gonna be seen if I do that. I don't know what the react." So they spend all their time thinking about the what if, what if, instead of
yeah.
actually going to do go and do it.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, people say, like, how did you make contact with celebrities, or how did you think to paint famous singers or musicians? But I actually was just like, well, I used to film people for the newsroom on the camera. And then I thought, well, now I've ended up in front of the camera. But I said to the people, I never knew that person I was interviewing for the news, I didn't know who they were. I just told them where to stand and made sure the sun was behind their head. I said, I was never worried about who they are. They're just the same as me, aren't they? Like, we're all working, we're
Yeah,
all
so either you
surviving.
wanted
And
to.
but I guess some people don't think like that. But my success to date will be because I'm just a human, and so are they, and we're all going ahead and moving forward. And that's just been the best part about it. I mean, I'm always thankful to meet them and learn about their life, but you can never know everything about everybody. So yeah, I'd always, I guess that was a bit of philosophy, it was a really great way to be.
Yeah, in the podcast world, I mean, where I just started asking people, like, back in 2016. I just started asking people, like, "Do you wanna get interviewed?" Right? And, like, all you can do is ask, right? So,
Yeah,
but, a lot of people, if they get a lot of rejections, they say, "Oh, I'm gonna stop." But I figured out a way to do it, and my kind of secret sauce was I'm a musician, I had a following, on Instagram. I
Yeah,
would look at
perfect.
it. So anybody who liked my work that was another musician, I would like DM them and say,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah, yeah.
would you want to come on my show and talk about your work?
Yeah,
Right.
like your tribe.
Yeah. So then because I was talking to people kind of in my space, they were a lot of them were willing to say, "Hey, why not?" Right? And then it started to open up. As initially, it was all just the musicians. Then I started finding writers. Then I started finding filmmakers. Then I started finding other performance artists. Anybody, people who are
Fantastic.
creative people, and it just started to snowball. And then once you get like known for something, then people say, "Hey, that Phantom, he's all right."
I
So then,
wanna
like,
go on there. Yeah.
yeah, so then you get a rep, and then you keep on getting guests. But it had to start with me saying, "Why not ask somebody?"
Yeah, and also you got to be grateful for that first musician who come on your show, and there are those moments that he give you permission and he give you the trust that muso was like, this is my guy. I'm going to do my interview with Phantom, and I'm trying to add to this is. I always, when I'm painting these frequency portraits, I paint in the chakra colors, and it was all about trying to paint what the singer on the microphone, what that singer is the energy and the
Energy
frequency
around
of being in front of a sold out stadium. So I had to rise up and had my own motion, and I'm striking those canvases for a 1 hour live skate show. And it was the first singer from a stoner rock band. They toured with Nirvana, and he sat on the vert ramp. He was still uh, probably half asleep from the night before with a big gig in Australia. And he to this day, he wishes he never wore a stripy t-shirt because it was a huge production, and I painted his portrait. And it was only it was the only because of he sat for the painting that I ever thought to do a portrait of a singer. And then I started doing portraits of every musician.
Well, I think that's cool, like, once that first person comes through, then it kinda gives you, like, the permission structure, as you said, when you actually have a success.
Yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah.
people don't realize, like, for every success, you had a lot of things that probably didn't go through, but it's like, there's like, you have to persevere, and I think sometimes
Yeah.
some folks don't realize that for when we as creatives break through, there's a lot of, like, work that didn't get through. There's
Oh,
a lot
yeah,
of
yeah,
stuff
yeah. And a lot of
that sitting
sore
on the cutting room
backs
floor.
and chiropractic adjustments and physio and swimming and everything. So, but yeah, I think it's so important if another human or another uh, part of your crew and they're at your same frequency, they're like, oh, I can see what this guy's trying to do here, and I'm going to show up for him. And that handshake will help you on your path. So if you're not getting those kind of hugs and handshakes, then find some other people. And
Yeah,
um,
find your
yeah,
tribe.
I had to find my music. I had to find singers, and I started going backstage in the green room and taking photos of bands, and I've got loads of photography like that. But I didn't know what that was part of either. But what I was really doing is I was trying to learn about the singer
Mhm.
so I could paint them. And then and the other thing I learned, Phantom, is those singers, they brought me into the green room, but that was also them deciding if they would sit for me.
Yeah.
So it was like they fielded out before
Yeah,
they
it's like a
come and
fear
sat for
kind of
their portraits.
yeah, it's kinda like
So
an interview. You're like, "Oh."
which is great because they're super busy. They're traveling and they got their own space and why would they want to get a painting done by me? So I mean, it was a journey for sure, and that's what we're talking about here. It doesn't just you're not going to cold call someone and then they're not going to sit for your portrait. So there are a lot of hours and touring and uh,
Yeah, a lot of pre-work.
building friendships. Yeah,
Yeah, it's all
building
that work
trust.
that goes into the piece. Like, every time you
Yeah,
come like, when people go and say, "Oh, like, I'm gonna do this thing in, like, 10 steps, and it's gonna happen in 20 days." Like, what about the 10 years before the 10
yeah,
steps? It's like, they what people don't realize, like, yeah, that person's an overnight sensation, but there was
yeah, yeah,
10
yeah.
years of living life that led to
Well,
them doing the overnight sensation.
Well, it's good for these portraits. Like the first ones were called Energy, and I was painting them in the chakra colors. But if I didn't survive cancer, I didn't know what the chakras were.
Yeah, it's all this stuff that like informs what you're doing, and it could be like a
Yeah,
decade or five, it could be all this time, all these people, and like people don't realize how much is actually going in to every piece of work that an artist does. There's so much going on. There's not just themselves, but the outer world around them, the people around them, people they didn't even know they were being observed.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's all this
It's
stuff
like
that's
when
happening.
I was living in London there, and as a student, and I went to every major art gallery all over Europe, like through when I was a teenager. So I witnessed all that art in human in person. When I went to America, I went around the 28 states there, and I'd always go to the art museums. I'd stand in front of all those great names and look at the texture before I even thought I was doing my own art. I did. Yeah, it only kicks in, but it felt like you'd done the research. But I'll only paint by going there and standing there, and the place and space has always been very important for me.
Yeah, I think it's the before any musician actually picks up anything, they've been a fan of like their influences, and they've done the work to kind of learn like the basics. Like they learn a lot of musicians, no matter what we say, we learn a lot of classical stuff. We learn the
Yeah,
kind of like all of our scales. We learn the basics. We learn the structure. And then we got our influences, like, I like Sun Ra, or I like Dylan, or I like Hendrix, or like what. But like you are like the culmination of all your influences and then all your internal stuff and all your living and everything that's going on. It's telling the story. And like what you've been saying is like your life led you to moments where you created this work, and everything was like an input. Everything was like bringing you there.
absolutely. Yeah. It's just documentary. It's expressing, without limitation, and finding that freedom. And all I can say is, yeah, it's I don't regret any of it. I absolutely love that I have been giving it a go. I think the synchronicities one will have by giving it a go is there'll be these moments where you'll sit in front of the guy, and he will be you if you did 30 years in that industry. And he'll say to you, if I had given my art a go, Brett, I'd be you. And if you stayed on the camera, working for television, you'd be me. And then you sit there and you share a moment, and then you go, geez, that's interesting. Like, I guess I'm really happy I gave it a go.
Yeah, it comes like you go from behind the camera to in front of the camera. Like it's how they full circle with you. But that's kind of how it goes. Like you've got like a very non-traditional way of unconventional career, by doing things that you felt were right and felt good to you and felt like the right thing to do. And I think that's what people like. I think your only obligation of an artist is like be true to your artistic soul. Like if you're true to your artistic soul, then everything's gonna be cool. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that's a
And
lesson.
I think the biggest thing is like, if you do have that real focus, the passion, and the confidence, just trust that it will always everything will play out correct. Um, that's what's got me through the whole thing. Is I never questioned it. I always just it is how it's meant to be, and they're all everyone's like, how do you know when it's finished? I said, I just let the skateboard roll and I walk off. I just walk off, and they're like, well, you don't even come and get a photo with everyone at the end. I said, I'm gone. Like, it's
It's
done.
done, done.
It's just the whole thing will dissolve, and you will all come and go, but you can't hold on to anything. I don't think you should have an attachment to anything, and I think um, it's so fleeting. If you have thoughts around something wasn't right, well, it's going to limit to your next experience.
just do the next thing. The way I look at it is like I'm very in that way we'll kind of close out. But for years, like when I was in my early 20s, I would like very highly compose stuff as a musician. And
Yeah.
then as after the cancer, I said, why am I doing that? It's like I now everything's kind of point in time and I don't go back to them. I just create these like sound paintings and they are what they are. And I find that I feel a lot more free. And if I want to do something different, I just create another piece. I don't need to go back to my old piece. I just keep on going forward.
Yeah, yeah, I love that fandom. Congratulations.
That's the best way to do it. But I think that
Slippery
seems like that
swag.
much what you're doing. But I want to let people know we've had your QR code up, and so that will go to ashby.com. And so if people go there, what do they find there?
Sure. So there's definitely some examples of my painting and my journey. I've got a link to the podcast page. I'll put up these links. You're welcome to follow me on the Instagram, and there's a blog page as well. So you'll see the Barack Obama painting on there, and you'll see one of my latest portraits there with Cash Savage.
Well, that's awesome.
Enjoy.
Well, I'd like everybody to know, like the actual URL will be clickable on the podcast platforms that we're on right now. We've been on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick. You can use the QR code and immediately go there. We'll be on other big platforms like Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and Facebook by the end of the day tomorrow. I want to thank you for being a guest on the Fam Electric Ghost podcast. It's been great.
Thank you, Phantom, and everybody follow Phantom. Rock and roll. It's been really lovely, man. Take care.
Take care. Yeah. Thank you. From down under.
Safe travels. See you again.